Hello, my earth-loving, magic-loving children of all ages. Mama Squirrel is back, and we're going to do the next story from Rupert's Tales because Litha, or Midsummer, is Friday, so it's coming up. So this comes from Rupert's Tales about the Wheel of the Year, and this is by Kyrja. I love Rupert. Now, I'm just going to put this over here so we can go sideways a little. All right, here we go. Start out with the butterfly. Rupert's longest day. Rupert the rabbit twitched his nose, sniffing the air. He thought that today he'd better take extra care. He'd watched many people arrive through the day and knew enough to stay hidden and out of their way. The last thing he wanted was for someone to see him, so he sat quietly watching beneath a fallen tree limb. See him there? He had seen people in the forest before a time or two, so he began to understand why they did the things they do. Still, they were a mystery, and he wanted to know more. Why did they come this time? What was in store? They came here from time to time to this very place, this clearing that looked like a round kind of space. He'd watched and he'd waited, knowing they'd come back, to fill their hearts with things their cities and houses seemed to lack. The lady had once explained, disguised in feathers of white, how beings in the forest helped people's hearts feel more right. The seasons of growing tasty things was now in full bloom, with afternoon clouds often bringing their wet, rainy gloom. The sun had long been rising its head earlier each day, and it seemed like there was always lots of time to play. The weather was turning from warm to hot, making him seek out shady places more often than not. So what was it, he wondered, about this time of year that made people leave their homes to gather here? Aw, look at Rupert meets a fae. Suddenly, something sparkled out of the corner of his eye, something tiny with wings that could flutter and fly. That tiny something swooped and soared and whirled, then stopped itself right in front of him with a sparkly little twirl. Rupert squinted both of his big brown eyes, then opened them wide with great surprise. "You have a lot of questions running around in your mind," said a tiny little voice that was both friendly and kind. It was a fairy that hovered there in space between his eyes, and he wondered if it was the lady in yet another disguise. One moment the fairy seemed to be glowing the color green, then changed to blue, then yellow, and many other colors in between. As he watched the fairy fluttering her tiny pretty wings, he thought that maybe she'd been sent to help explain a few things. "Why, yes, my furry friend, that's exactly why I'm here. So listen closely," she giggled, "and lend me your ear." Rupert grinned and rolled his eyes at the fairy's silly jest, but paid close attention. To the meaning of her request. Look at how beautiful the sun. "Today is the longest day of the year," she said, "when the sun takes a very long time to lay down his head." "It's time," the fairy told him, "for a change of seasons, though it will be a while before you feel the reasons." "Time for a change already?" Rupert exclaimed. He pouted, saying, "If I'm unhappy, I can't be blamed. The grass is long and green and sweet, and the clover right now, oh, it's a delicious treat. If the season is changing, it'll soon be cold, and the grass will shrivel, drying and tasting old." Gazing at the people gathered together, he wondered if it was they who changed the weather. Look at the fairy on her little mushroom. Oh, Rupert, the fairy sighed, shaking her head. Be calm for a moment. There's nothing to dread. The seasons may come and go all throughout the year. Those people come to celebrate what they hold dear. It's not their fault one day you'll be cold, or the fact that the grass will taste musty and old. God and Goddess long ago put nature's rules into play, so that in all things balance would always hold sway. There is a time for work and a time for rest. All creatures know this from the east to the west. There's a time for growing and a time for dying. Plants and animals do these things without even trying. As the season had a beginning, so it must have an end, and then one day it will come back again. Oh, she's so cute, the little red-headed fairy. But I'll be cold, Rupert said with a frown, picturing freezing snow covering the ground. The fairy smiled and shrugged her slim shoulders. You can't stop the weather from turning colder. Nature is nature. It's always been this way. For now, enjoy the sun on the longest day. Rupert sighed, not knowing what to say, then asked, how long will the weather stay this way? Oh, for months and months until autumn arrives. The sun will still warm all of our lives. You mean the weather will stay hot as the days grow short? Rupert couldn't help giving a disbelieving snort. Mosquitoes. Oh, yes, the fairy agreed, changing from orange to red. Isn't that exactly what I already said? Silly Rupert. Oh, look at how beautiful the summer is. That's the nature of nature. There isn't anything wrong. The days will grow shorter and the nights will grow long. Slowly, so slowly, you won't notice anything at all until they are both equal at the equinox in the fall. Well, Rupert said, that's a long time away. I still have lots of time in the sun to play. The fairy smiled, her pretty face turning daffodil yellow. I knew you would understand. You're a smart little fellow. Here comes the people in the circle. So those people there, they're happy too? Do you understand really what it is that they do? Oh yes, my friend, they help in their own way. Giving thanks and praise, they celebrate the day. They usher in the new and bid farewell to the old, even knowing they, like you, will someday soon be cold. Without the seasons change, nature's balance would be gone, and they, like us, wouldn't last for very long. To the god and goddess, their songs are a special treat, and their prayers add energy to make the day complete. What role they play, you and I will never know, but without them, the seasons just might cease to flow. Oh, look at, she's a beautiful red. Oh no, Rupert cried, a tremble in his voice. That would be a terrible, terrible choice. The fairy smiled as she raised one thin eyebrow. Do you think being cold for a while is so very bad now? No, Rupert smiled. No, it's really not. Besides, he said, I have months and months to play while it's still hot. Then stay if you will, or go play in the sun. It will be a long time before these people are done. And while you're giving those long legs a good healthy run, make sure you take a moment to honor the sun. The moon is the symbol of Our Lady, Maiden, Mother, and Crone. But remember, the sun represents our Lord, who shares her throne. Balance, my friend, remember it well. May the Lord and Lady in your heart always dwell. The end. I just love Rupert. I can't get enough of our cute little Rupert. So hopefully you understand now. We're celebrating the sun in the longest day and the shortest night. I love you guys. You have a blessed solstice and a blessed Litha. We'll see you soon.